Picture, if you will, a world without a single drop of water. 4.5 billion years ago, our Earth was nothing more than a molten furnace spinning through the cosmic dark. No gentle waves lapped against any shore. No rain fell from any sky. There was only fire, rock, and the endless violence of a planet still learning how to be. Before we continue this journey, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story resonates with you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extraordinary for you. This was not the Earth we know. This was a world where the very ground glowed with heat that would vaporize any ocean in an instant. The atmosphere, if we can call it that, was a toxic soup of hydrogen, helium, and volcanic gases. And yet, hidden within this chaos, lay the seeds of the most remarkable transformation our planet would ever undergo. The change began with water. Not the gentle streams and peaceful lakes we know today, but water locked away in the hearts of countless comets, hurtling through space on collision courses with our young world. For millions upon millions of years, these icy messengers bombarded Earth's surface. Each impact was catastrophic. Explosions that would dwarf any nuclear weapon, craters that scarred the landscape for eternity. But with each collision came something precious, water vapor, rising into the hostile atmosphere. Consider the patience required for such a transformation. While the surface remained too hot for liquid water to exist, the vapor accumulated, molecule by molecule, in the upper atmosphere. Volcanic eruptions added their own contribution. Billions of tons of water vapor released from deep within the Earth's interior, where it had been trapped since the planet's formation. Then came the moment that changed everything. As millions of years passed, the relentless bombardment began to slow. The Earth's surface, no longer constantly reheated by impact after impact, began to cool. The temperature dropped below the critical threshold, AB, 100 degrees Celsius. For the first time in our planet's history, water vapor could condense into liquid droplets. The first raindrop to fall on Earth must have lasted mere seconds before evaporating in a hiss of steam. But it was followed by another and another. What began as isolated drops became a drizzle, then a downpour, then something the universe had never witnessed before, a planetary deluge that would continue without pause for 200 million years. Imagine witnessing this transformation. 200 million years of unending rain. Day after day, month after month, century after century, water poured from the skies. Every crater became a lake. Every valley became a river. Every low-lying plain disappeared beneath an ever-rising tide of fresh water that had never before touched solid ground. The rain was not gentle. These were storms of unimaginable intensity, fed by an atmosphere saturated with more water vapor than exists in our entire world today. Lightning split the sky in constant displays that would have dwarfed any tempest in recorded history. Thunder rolled across the continents in endless waves, the soundtrack to Earth's greatest metamorphosis. But perhaps the most remarkable aspect of this transformation was its gentleness. Despite the violence of individual storms, the overall process was one of patient accumulation. Drop by drop, the oceans filled. The water found its level, obeying the same gravitational forces that govern our seas today. Mountains remained above the surface, but between them, vast basins overflowed with more water than had ever existed in liquid form anywhere in the known universe. When the rains finally ceased, our planet had become something entirely new, a blue world. 71% of Earth's surface now lay beneath water. From space, our planet would have appeared as a brilliant sapphire suspended in the cosmic dark, its surface broken only by the brown and grey of continents that had survived the flood. This was not merely the birth of oceans. This was the moment Earth gained the power to nurture life itself. The water that filled those ancient basins carried with it the dissolved minerals from countless rocks, eroded by eons of rainfall. Sodium, magnesium, calcium, potassium, MCT, the essential elements that would one day flow through the veins of every living creature, now swirled together in a planetary soup of infinite possibility. The water cycle had begun its eternal dance. Even as the great rains ended, evaporation carried moisture back into the atmosphere, where it would condense and fall again. This circulation pattern established the foundation for every weather system, every storm, every gentle shower that has followed. The oceans became Earth's great recycling system, purifying and redistributing the precious molecules that would make life possible. But water did more than simply accumulate. It began to move. Differences in temperature between the sun-warmed surface and the cooler depths created the first ocean currents. The Earth's rotation, that 24-hour spin that gives us day and night, began to influence these movements, creating circulation patterns that would persist for billions of years. The Moon's gravitational pull, the same force that stabilizes our planet's tilt and moderates our climate, began its twice-daily tug on the waters, creating the first tides. These early oceans were not the clear blue waters we know today. They were murky with dissolved minerals, their chemistry more alien than familiar. The atmosphere above contained almost no oxygen. That life-giving gas had not yet been invented. Carbon dioxide levels were hundreds of times higher than today, creating a greenhouse effect that kept the planet warm despite the sun being 30% dimmer than it is now. Yet, even in this alien environment, the stage was set for the greatest performance in Earth's history. The oceans had become vast laboratories where the laws of chemistry and physics could experiment with new possibilities. Every wave that broke on a primordial shore mixed dissolved gases with mineral-rich water. Every tide pool became a crucible, where complex molecules could form and interact in ways that had never occurred before. The water itself possessed qualities that made it uniquely suited for nurturing life. Unlike most substances, water reaches its maximum density at 4 degrees Celsius, not at its freezing point. This simple fact means that ice floats, creating an insulating layer that prevents bodies of water from freezing solid. Even in Earth's early unstable climate, liquid water could persist in protected environments. Water's ability to dissolve other substances made it the perfect medium for chemical reactions. Its molecules, with their slight electrical charge, could attract and organize other molecules in precise arrangements. In these ancient seas, the building blocks of life, amino acids, proteins, nucleic acids, could form stable structures that would have been impossible in any other environment. As we peer back across those 4.5 billion years, we can see that the birth of our oceans was not simply a geological event. It was the moment our planet became capable of dreaming of life. Every drop of water that fell during those 200 million years of rain carried within it the potential for consciousness, for intelligence, for the very thoughts you are thinking at this moment. The blue planet that emerged from that ancient deluge was patient. For another billion years the oceans would wait, their chemistry slowly evolving, their currents gradually settling into stable patterns. But the foundation had been laid. Earth had become a world where the impossible might become inevitable. And in those quiet depths, warmed by volcanic vents and stirred by tidal forces, the first stirrings of something extraordinary were already beginning. The oceans had learned to cradle the chemicals of life. Soon they would learn to create it. The stage was set. The greatest story ever told was about to begin. In the protective embrace of Earth's new oceans, life itself was preparing to take its first breath. In the warm shallows of those ancient seas, 3.5 billion years ago, something extraordinary was stirring. The oceans had been patient for nearly 1 billion years, their chemistry slowly evolving, their depths harboring possibilities that had never before existed in the universe. And then, in a moment so quiet it would have passed unnoticed, life took its first breath. Picture these primordial waters. They were not the clear blue of tropical lagoons, but a rich broth of dissolved minerals and organic compounds. Carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur, Db, the essential elements of life, swirled together in concentrations that would never again be matched. The atmosphere above held no oxygen, only carbon dioxide, methane, and hydrogen sulfide. It was, by our standards, a poisonous world. Yet it was perfect for what was about to unfold. The first living creatures were so small they would have been invisible to your eyes. Microscopic spheres no larger than 1,000th of a millimeter. They possessed something the universe had never seen before. Nope, the ability to reproduce themselves. These weren't complex organisms with hearts or brains or nervous systems. They were simply collections of chemicals that had learned the most important trick in existence: how to make copies of themselves. But among these early pioneers, one group would change everything: the cyanobacteria. These tiny organisms discovered something revolutionary. They could capture the energy of sunlight and use it to transform simple chemicals into the complex molecules they needed to survive. Photosynthesis had been invented, and with it came a waste product that would transform our planet forever: oxygen. For the first time in Earth's history, living creatures began breathing out the very gas that would one day fill our lungs. But this was not the gentle release we might imagine. These microscopic pioneers worked with the dedication of master craftsmen, splitting water molecules apart with captured sunlight, keeping the hydrogen they needed, and releasing oxygen into waters that had never tasted it before. Consider the magnitude of this transformation. For 1 billion years, a span of time so vast it challenges comprehension, these tiny organisms labored in the shallow seas. Generation after generation, they absorbed carbon dioxide and exhaled oxygen. At first, the oxygen was immediately absorbed by iron dissolved in the seawater, creating rusty red deposits that would later become some of our planet's most important iron ore formations. But gradually, inevitably, the oceans became saturated with this new gas. The Great Oxidation Event had begun. What followed was perhaps the most dramatic environmental catastrophe, and triumph, in Earth's history. Oxygen, which we now consider essential for life, was initially a deadly poison to most organisms. As oxygen levels rose in the oceans and then in the atmosphere, countless species that had thrived in the oxygen-free world began to perish. It was Earth's first mass extinction, caused not by an asteroid or volcanic eruption, but by life itself. Yet from this apparent catastrophe came opportunity. Some organisms learned not just to tolerate oxygen, but to harness its incredible energy-releasing potential. Oxygen-breathing life forms could extract far more energy from their food than their predecessors. They could grow larger, move faster, live longer. The foundation for complex life had been laid, but the cyanobacteria had accomplished something even more remarkable than creating oxygen. They had learned to cooperate. In those ancient seas, individual cells began joining together, forming the first partnerships in Earth's history. These weren't random collisions, but deliberate alliances where different organisms specialized in different tasks. Some cells became experts at capturing sunlight. Others excelled at processing nutrients. Still others developed the ability to move through the water, carrying their partners to new feeding grounds. These early alliances discovered how to share resources through microscopic pipelines, communicate through chemical signals, and even sacrifice themselves for the survival of their communities when resources became scarce. Watch these ancient partnerships at work, and you witness the birth of something we take for granted today: cooperation. Competition for resources had driven evolution from the beginning, but cooperation allowed life to transcend the limitations of individual survival. A single cell might live for hours or days, but a cooperative colony could persist for months or years, weathering storms and droughts that would destroy isolated organisms. These partnerships grew more sophisticated over millions of years. Some cells learned to surround and protect others, creating the first boundaries between an organism and its environment. Others developed the ability to store information in long, complex molecules that could be passed from one generation to the next. The genetic code, UZ, that universal language that connects every living thing on Earth, was being written in the depths of ancient seas. As these cellular communities grew larger and more complex, they began to experiment with specialization on an unprecedented scale. Some cells within a colony focused entirely on reproduction, ensuring the survival of the group's genetic information. Others became living factories, producing specific chemicals needed by their neighbors. Still others developed into primitive sensory systems, detecting changes in light, temperature, or chemistry, and alerting the entire community to opportunities or dangers. The oceans had become a vast nursery where life learned its most fundamental lessons: how to capture energy from sunlight, how to build complex structures from simple components, how to communicate across distances, how to cooperate for mutual benefit, how to store and transmit information across generations. These skills, first mastered by microscopic organisms in primordial seas, would later enable the construction of coral reefs, the navigation of migrating whales, and the complex social behaviors of dolphin pods. But perhaps most remarkably, these early life forms learned how to transform their environment to better suit their needs. The oxygen they released didn't just accumulate randomly, it created the conditions necessary for even more sophisticated forms of life. They were ecosystem engineers, reshaping their world on a planetary scale. The chemistry of the oceans themselves began to change in response to this biological activity. Living organisms started concentrating certain elements and dispersing others, creating chemical gradients that would influence the distribution of life for billions of years to come. Calcium carbonate shells and skeletons began forming, eventually creating limestone deposits hundreds of meters thick. The carbon cycle, that fundamental planetary process that regulates Earth's temperature, was being established by the metabolic activities of countless tiny organisms. As oxygen levels rose, the oceans gained the ability to support larger, more energetic creatures. The first organisms visible to the naked eye appeared, simple jellyfish-like creatures that drifted through the water, feeding on smaller organisms and releasing waste products that fertilized the growth of bacterial communities. These were Earth's first ecosystems, where different species began to depend on each other in intricate webs of mutual benefit. The protective embrace of the oceans allowed these early experiments to flourish. Unlike the harsh, radiation-bathed surface of the land, the seas provided stable temperatures, protection from cosmic rays, and a three-dimensional environment where organisms could find their perfect niche. Some thrived in the bright shallows, others in the perpetual darkness of the depths. Some preferred the constant motion of the open ocean, others the stability of the seafloor. Water itself proved to be the perfect medium for life's development. Its ability to dissolve and transport nutrients meant that even stationary organisms could access the resources they needed. Its transparency allowed sunlight to penetrate to depths of hundreds of meters, providing energy for photosynthesis far below the surface. Its density provided buoyancy, allowing organisms to grow to sizes that would be impossible on land without massive skeletal support. Most importantly, water's thermal properties helped stabilize the environment where life was learning to thrive. The oceans absorbed heat during warm periods and released it during cold ones, preventing the extreme temperature swings that characterized the early atmosphere. This thermal stability gave evolution the time it needed to experiment with increasingly complex forms of organization. By the end of this billion-year period of experimentation, the oceans had become something unprecedented in the universe, a living system. Not just a collection of separate organisms competing for resources, but an integrated network where the waste products of some species became the food for others, where chemical signals coordinated activities across vast distances, and where the collective behavior of countless individuals created conditions that benefited the entire community. The stage was now set for the next great leap in complexity. In the protective depths of the world's oceans, simple cells were beginning to merge into more complex forms. The first multicellular organisms were stirring to life, and with them would come an explosion of diversity that would fill every corner of the seas with wonders beyond imagination. Life had learned to breathe. Now it was ready to dream. As life flourished and diversified in Earth's ancient seas, the oceans themselves began to reveal their hidden architecture. What had once seemed like a uniform expanse of water was actually a series of distinct worlds, each with its own rules, its own residents, and its own extraordinary communities. The vertical structure of the ocean, from the sun-drenched surface to the crushing depths, had created the most diverse collection of neighborhoods our planet has ever known. Imagine descending through these layers, each one a revelation of adaptation and ingenuity. At the surface, bathed in brilliant sunlight, extends the euphotic zone of light. The ocean's Garden of Eden. Here, in the top 200 meters of water, sunlight penetrates with enough intensity to power the most abundant communities on Earth. This is where the ocean's great work of photosynthesis takes place, performed not by towering trees or flowering meadows, but by organisms so small they drift unseen in every drop of seawater. Phytoplankton. The name means wandering plants, though they are neither plants nor random wanderers. These microscopic organisms are the ocean's master gardeners, each one a tiny solar collector that transforms sunlight and dissolved nutrients into the organic compounds that feed virtually every creature in the sea. In a single liter of surface seawater, millions of these organisms work tirelessly, their collective effort producing 50% of all the oxygen you breathe. Consider the scale of this achievement. Every second breath you take was created by organisms you cannot see, floating in waters you may never visit. These tiny engineers have been working for over 3 billion years, maintaining the atmospheric composition that makes complex life possible. They are the ocean's gift to the entire planet, invisible heroes that connect the remotest sea to your very lungs. But the Keir euphotic zone is more than just a solar collection system. It is a three-dimensional meadow where countless species have learned to live, hunt, and hide in the open water. Here drift the jellyfish, those ancient mariners whose ancestors witnessed the first emergence of multicellular life. Their translucent bells pulse through the water with hypnotic rhythm, trailing tentacles that are among the most sophisticated hunting tools in nature. Some species trail these fishing lines for 30 meters or more, creating living nets that can capture prey across an area larger than a football field. Swimming among them are the ocean's wanderers, fish whose entire lives unfold in the open water, never touching solid ground. Tuna streak through these waters at speeds approaching 70 kilometers per hour, their bodies perfectly engineered for perpetual motion. Their hearts never stop beating, their gills never stop processing water, their muscles never stop generating the heat that keeps them warm even in cool ocean waters. They are living torpedoes, designed by millions of years of evolution to be among the most efficient travelers on Earth. But descend deeper, beyond the reach of direct sunlight, and you enter one of the ocean's most mysterious realms, the twilight zone. From 200 to 1,000 meters below the surface, this dimly lit world operates by rules that seem borrowed from fantasy. Here, in the perpetual dusk, where sunlight fades to the faintest blue glow, life has learned perhaps its most magical trick, bioluminescence. In the twilight zone, darkness is not the absence of light, but a canvas for its creation. 90% of the animals here produce their own illumination through chemical reactions more efficient than any light bulb ever invented. Lanternfish cruise through the water like living constellations, their bodies studded with photophores that create patterns unique to each species. These aren't random light displays, but sophisticated communication systems, OSI, underwater Morse code, that allows creatures to find mates, confuse predators, and coordinate hunting in the eternal twilight. Deep-sea jellyfish drift through this realm like living galaxies, their transparent bells outlined in chains of blue and green fire. When threatened, they explode in brilliant displays of light, alarm systems that can be seen for hundreds of meters through the crystal-clear water. Some species create rings of light that expand outward like ripples on a pond, while others release clouds of glowing particles that confuse attackers and allow escape into the protective darkness. The vampire squid makes its home in these depths, though its fearsome name belies a gentle nature. This remarkable creature can turn itself inside out when threatened, transforming from a streamlined swimmer into a spiky ball covered in bioluminescent spots. It's like watching a living firework that can reorganize its entire body structure, an escape artist whose performances would astound any magician. But perhaps the most remarkable residents of the Twilight Zone are the vertical migrants, creatures that undertake the largest migration on Earth twice every day. As darkness falls, billions of animals rise from the depths toward the surface, following the phytoplankton that form the base of their food web. At dawn they descend again, carrying nutrients from the surface into the deeper waters. This daily vertical migration involves more biomass than any other animal movement on our planet, a river of life flowing up and down through the ocean columns every 24 hours. Deeper still, where pressure reaches crushing intensities and temperatures hover just above freezing, lies the bathypelagic zone, D5, the Midnight Realm. 4,000 meters below the surface, the weight of water above would compress any air-filled space to a fraction of its surface volume. Yet life not only survives here, but thrives in abundance that astounds researchers. At these depths, the rules of survival change completely. Food is scarce. Only a tiny fraction of the organic matter produced at the surface ever reaches these depths. Yet the creatures here have evolved strategies so effective they can maintain populations across ocean basins. Giant tube worms, found nowhere else on Earth, cluster around hydrothermal vents where superheated water rich in minerals erupts from the seafloor. These remarkable animals have no digestive systems. Instead, they host bacteria within their tissues that convert the vent's chemicals into food through processes that require no sunlight whatsoever. These vent communities represent one of the most extraordinary discoveries in modern biology: entire ecosystems, powered not by the sun but by the Earth's internal heat. Here, in crushing darkness under pressures that would implode a submarine, life has found a way to thrive using energy sources that predate photosynthesis itself. Giant clams with shells over a meter-long filter nutrients from the mineral-rich water, while ghostly white crabs scavenge through the bacterial mats that coat the volcanic rocks. The deep-sea floor, once thought to be a barren wasteland, has revealed itself as one of Earth's most biodiverse environments. Across the abyssal plains, strange creatures create patterns in the sediment that can be seen from research, submersibles, geometric trails and spiral formations that suggest intelligence and purpose in organisms we're only beginning to understand. Sea pigs, relatives of sea cucumbers, move across the seafloor in herds numbering in the thousands, processing the organic matter that drifts down from above like underwater bison grazing on an endless prairie. But the ocean's architecture extends beyond simple depth zones. Temperature, pressure, and chemistry create boundaries as real as any mountain range or river valley. The Gulf Stream, that great river within the sea, carries 150 million cubic meters of water every second, 230 times the flow of all terrestrial rivers combined. This massive current system doesn't just move water, it creates distinct habitats, transporting warm water species thousands of kilometers from their tropical origins and creating oases of warmth in otherwise cold seas. Where warm and cold currents meet, upwelling zones create some of the ocean's most productive ecosystems. Cold, nutrient-rich water from the depths rises to the surface, fertilizing explosive blooms of phytoplankton that support food webs of incredible complexity. The Humboldt Current off the coast of South America supports more fish biomass per unit area than anywhere else on Earth. EVA. Silvery clouds of anchovies so dense they can be seen from space, supporting populations of seabirds, marine mammals, and human communities that depend on the ocean's abundance. Coral reefs represent perhaps the ocean's greatest architectural achievement. Cities built by living creatures over thousands of years. These limestone metropolises, constructed by tiny polyps working in partnership with photosynthetic algae, support 25% of all marine species despite covering less than 1% of the ocean floor. In the warm, clear waters of the tropics, these partnerships between animals and plants have created structures visible from orbit, ADDO, living monuments to the power of cooperation. Each coral colony is a superorganism, composed of thousands of individual polyps working together with clockwork precision. By day, their algal partners photosynthesize, converting sunlight into sugars that feed the coral. By night, the polyps extend their tentacles to capture zooplankton from the water, supplementing their diet with animal protein. This dual feeding strategy allows coral reefs to thrive in waters so clear and nutrient-poor they would be deserts without this remarkable partnership. The kelp forests of cooler waters represent a different kind of underwater architecture, towering brown algae that can grow 60 centimeters in a single day, creating three-dimensional habitats that stretch from the sea floor to the surface. These underwater redwoods support their own complex communities. Sea otters float on their backs at the surface, cracking open sea urchins. Fish dart between the fronds in silver schools, and at the base, an intricate community of invertebrates creates one of the most biodiverse ecosystems in temperate seas. From the smallest bacterial communities to the largest migrating whales, every ocean neighborhood demonstrates the same fundamental principle. FUS. Life finds a way to turn environmental challenges into opportunities. The crushing pressure of the deep sea becomes a protection from predators. The eternal darkness becomes a canvas for bioluminescent communication. The seemingly empty open ocean becomes a three-dimensional habitat where creatures can exploit every layer of water. These underwater kingdoms are connected by currents that span entire ocean basins, creating a global network where nutrients circulate and species maintain contact across thousands of kilometers. A whale song recorded in the Pacific can travel across an entire ocean basin. A jellyfish larva, drifting in the Atlantic, might complete its development in European waters thousands of kilometers from where it was spawned. The ocean had become more than a body of water. Every drop connects to this. It had become a living system where every drop connects to every other drop, where every creature's survival depends on the health of the whole, and where the boundaries between individual and community, between species and ecosystem, blur into the flowing unity that is life itself. These were the kingdoms beneath the waves, each one a testament to life's infinite creativity. And in their depths, new discoveries awaited, revelations that would change our understanding of what it means to be alive on a blue planet. For countless millennia, humans gazed upon the ocean's surface and saw only mystery. The waters stretched to the horizon and beyond, their depths holding secrets that seemed destined to remain forever hidden. Sailors spoke of sea monsters and mermaids, of waters that boiled without fire, and currents that could carry ships to the edge of the world. The ocean was beautiful, terrible, and utterly unknowable. Yet within the curious heart of humanity lay an irrepressible urge to understand. What drove our ancestors to risk everything on fragile boats, venturing into waters that could swallow them without trace? Perhaps it was the same force that compels us today to explore the cosmos, and recognition that true knowledge requires courage, that the greatest discoveries await those willing to journey into the unknown. The first breakthrough came not from elaborate instruments or sophisticated theories, but from simple observation and fearless curiosity. Ancient Polynesian navigators learned to read the ocean itself, and not the subtle patterns of waves, the behavior of seabirds, the color and temperature of water that revealed invisible islands beyond the horizon. They discovered that the sea was not a featureless void, but a highway marked with signs that could guide skilled travelers across thousands of kilometers of open water. These early ocean explorers developed an intimacy with the sea that modern technology has only begun to replicate. They could sense the presence of land from the way swells reflected off distant shores. They read the movements of clouds to locate islands still invisible below the horizon. They understood that the ocean was not empty, but teeming with life, whose behaviors could guide human navigation. Flying fish, dolphin pods, and seabird feeding patterns all became pages in an ocean atlas written by nature itself. But it wasn't until the 19th century that humanity truly began to penetrate the ocean's deepest mysteries. The catalyst came from an unexpected source: the need to lay through telegraph cables across the Atlantic Ocean floor. Suddenly, accurate maps of the deep sea became essential for global communication. Engineers needed to know not just where the ocean was deepest, but what kinds of terrain lay hidden beneath miles of water. The Breakthrough Expedition launched from Portsmouth, England, on December 21, 1872. HMS Challenger, a naval corvette converted for scientific research, would spend the next 3.5 years systematically exploring the world's oceans. No voyage before or since has contributed more to our understanding of marine life and ocean structure. Picture the dedication of these Victorian explorers. Day after day, in all weather conditions, they lowered weighted ropes to measure ocean depths that had never been sounded. They dragged nets through waters at every level, hauling up creatures that no human eyes had ever seen. They measured water temperature, salinity, and chemistry with instruments barely more sophisticated than those available to ancient Greek philosophers. Their discoveries transformed our understanding of the planet we inhabit. The ocean floor, far from being a flat, featureless plain, revealed itself as a landscape more dramatic than any mountain range on Earth. They discovered trenches so deep that Mount Everest could disappear within them without reaching the surface. They found underwater mountain chains that dwarfed the Himalayas, running like spines down the centers of ocean basins. Most remarkably, they discovered life everywhere they looked, from the sun-bright surface to the crushing depths where pressure exceeded anything experienced on land. Living creatures not only survived but flourished. In 3.5 years of exploration, HMS Challenger collected specimens of 4,700 species that were entirely new to science. The deep sea, long thought to be a sterile abyss, was revealed as one of Earth's richest ecosystems. The expedition's findings shattered fundamental assumptions about life on Earth. Scientists had theorized that the deep ocean, cold and dark and under enormous pressure, could support only the simplest forms of life. Instead, they found complexity that rivaled tropical rainforests. Glass sponges created intricate sculptures from dissolved silica. Deep-sea corals built reefs in eternal darkness. Fish with enormous eyes and light-producing organs revealed adaptations to life in perpetual night that surpassed any science fiction writer's imagination. One discovery in particular captured the public imagination. From the deepest parts of the ocean came creatures that seemed to glow with their own inner fire. Bioluminescent jellyfish, deep-sea anglerfish with living lures, and bacteria that painted the darkness with living light revealed that the deep ocean was not a realm of death, but a galaxy of living stars. The early 20th century brought new tools that would revolutionize ocean exploration. The invention of sonar during World War I allowed scientists to map the seafloor with unprecedented accuracy. Sound waves bounced off underwater mountains and valleys, creating the first detailed pictures of the hidden topography beneath the waves. The ocean floor emerged from mystery like a photograph developing in a dark room. These sonar surveys revealed features that challenged every theory about how planets form and change. Mid-ocean ridges, underwater mountain chains running like seams through every ocean basin, suggested that the seafloor itself was growing, spreading outward from central volcanic zones. Deep trenches marked places where entire sections of seafloor seemed to disappear back into Earth's interior. The ocean basins were not permanent fixtures, but dynamic landscapes constantly reshaping themselves through processes that operated on geological timescales. The 1940s brought another revolution. The development of practical underwater breathing apparatus. For the first time in human history, we could enter the ocean realm directly, swimming alongside the creatures we had previously known only as specimens in nets. Jacques Cousteau and Émile Gagnan's invention of the demand regulator made the underwater world accessible to human exploration, transforming our relationship with the sea from distant observation to intimate experience. Suddenly, marine biologists could observe animal behavior in natural settings. They could watch predator-prey interactions unfold in real time, study the complex social behaviors of dolphin pods, and document the intricate partnerships that sustained coral reef communities. The ocean revealed itself not as a collection of isolated species, but as an interconnected web of relationships, more complex than any terrestrial ecosystem. The development of deep-sea submersibles opened the ocean's ultimate frontier, the abyssal depths where no sunlight has ever penetrated. In 1960, the bathyscaphe Trieste carried Jacques Piccard and Don Walsh 11 kilometers down to the deepest point on Earth, Fosse Sauve, the Challenger Deep in the Mariana Trench. At crushing depths where pressure exceeds 1,100 times that at sea level, they discovered that life persists even in Earth's most extreme environment. The view from that record-breaking dive challenged fundamental assumptions about the limits of life. In the sediment at the bottom of the world's deepest trench, simple organisms continued the processes of living that had begun in shallow seas billions of years earlier. Life, it seemed, recognized no boundaries that human imagination had not already exceeded. But perhaps the most revolutionary discovery came in 1977, when the research submersible Alvin investigated unusual water chemistry readings near the Galapagos Islands. What the crew found defied every principle of ecology then known to science. Clustered around hydrothermal vents, underwater hot springs heated by the populace, volcanic activity, TB thrived entire ecosystems that operated without any connection to sunlight. Giant tube worms, some reaching lengths of 2 meters, swayed in the mineral-rich currents. Ghostly white crabs scuttled across bacterial mats that converted hydrogen sulfide into food through processes that had never been documented. Clams larger than dinner plates filtered nutrients from water heated to temperatures that would kill most organisms. Here was life powered not by photosynthesis but by chemosynthesis, ABT, the conversion of inorganic chemicals into biological energy. The discovery of hydrothermal vent communities revolutionized our understanding of how and where life can exist. These oases in the deep sea demonstrated that Earth harbored ecosystems as alien as anything we might expect to find on other planets. They suggested that life's requirements were far more flexible than we had imagined, opening possibilities for biological activity in environments previously thought impossible. Modern technology has accelerated the pace of ocean discovery exponentially. Satellite-mounted sensors can detect microscopic changes in ocean color that reveal the health and distribution of phytoplankton communities across entire ocean basins. Autonomous underwater vehicles equipped with cameras and sensors explore the deep sea for months at a time, documenting ecosystems in regions too remote or dangerous for human visitation. DNA sequencing has revealed that ocean biodiversity exceeds our wildest estimates. A single liter of seawater contains millions of microorganisms representing thousands of species, many of which play crucial roles in global chemical cycles. The ocean's microbial communities, invisible to earlier generations of explorers, are now understood to be among the most important ecosystems on Earth. Acoustic tracking allows scientists to follow individual animals across entire ocean basins. Great white sharks tagged off California appear months later near Port Rey. Hawaii. Arctic terns migrate from pole to pole in journeys exceeding 70,000 kilometers annually. Whales sing songs that travel across entire oceans, maintaining contact with their families across distances that span continents. Each new technology reveals previously hidden layers of ocean complexity. Underwater laboratories allow scientists to live beneath the sea for weeks at a time, documenting behaviors and interactions that occur too slowly or subtly for brief research dives to capture. Molecular analysis reveals genetic connections between organisms separated by thousands of kilometers of open water. Yet for all our technological sophistication, the ocean retains its power to surprise us. New species are discovered every month in environments ranging from tropical coral reefs to Arctic ice sheets. Behaviors once thought impossible are documented in creatures we thought we understood. The deep sea continues to yield discoveries that challenge our understanding of life itself. The ocean that once seemed impenetrable to human understanding has become our planet's greatest library. ABPO says, a repository of biological innovations, ecological relationships, and evolutionary solutions that inspire advances in medicine, engineering, and environmental science. Every dive, every sample, every measurement adds new pages to this vast encyclopedia of planetary knowledge. But perhaps the most profound discovery is the recognition that the ocean is not separate from terrestrial life, but intimately connected to every process that sustains our planet. The breath you draw, the weather that waters your crops, the climate that makes human civilization possible, ESR, all depend on processes that begin in the depths of the sea. Humanity's journey into the ocean realm has revealed that we are not observers of marine ecosystems, but participants in them. Our future is written in the health of the seas, our prosperity tied to the productivity of waters we are only beginning to understand. The age of ocean discovery has only just begun. In laboratories around the world, scientists work to decode the chemical communications that coordinate coral spawning across entire reef systems. Engineers design robots that can explore ocean trenches deeper than any human will ever travel. Biologists study ancient DNA preserved in deep-sea sediments to understand how ocean ecosystems have responded to climate changes throughout Earth's history. The ocean has taught us that the unknown is not a void to be feared, but a frontier to be explored with wonder, respect, and endless curiosity. In its depths lie answers to questions we have not yet learned to ask, solutions to problems we have not yet learned to solve, and inspiration for achievements we have not yet learned to imagine. The greatest ocean discoveries lie ahead of us, waiting in depths we have not yet explored, in behaviors we have not yet witnessed, in relationships we have not yet understood. The sea that once seemed infinite in its mystery now beckons with infinite possibility. Deep beneath the surface of our everyday awareness, the oceans perform a task so vast and essential that life on Earth would be impossible without it. They are not merely bodies of water dotting our planet's surface, but the primary life support system for our entire world, a planetary engine that regulates temperature, weather, and the very composition of the air we breathe. Imagine, for a moment, standing on the shore of any ocean and trying to comprehend the scale of the forces at work before you. Every wave that breaks at your feet is part of a circulation system so immense it moves 25 million cubic meters of water every second. This is more water than flows through all the world's rivers combined, yet it represents only a fraction of the ocean's total movement. This circulation begins with the most fundamental force in our solar system, the uneven heating of Earth's surface by the sun. At the equator, where solar radiation strikes most directly, surface waters warm to temperatures approaching 30 degrees Celsius. Near the poles, where sunlight arrives at oblique angles, surface temperatures hover near freezing. This temperature difference might seem simple, but it drives the most complex and far-reaching transport system our planet has ever known. Warm water is less dense than cold water, so the heated tropical seas rise while cooler polar waters sink. But Earth's rotation complicates this simple pattern, deflecting moving water masses in curves that span entire ocean basins. The result is a three-dimensional circulation pattern that connects every drop of ocean water on our planet in a single, continuous flow. Consider the journey of a water molecule beginning its circulation in the tropical Atlantic. Warmed by Caribbean sunshine, it joins the Gulf Stream, our river, within the sea that carries 150 million cubic meters of water northward every second. This massive current, 30 times more powerful than all terrestrial rivers combined, transports not just water, but enormous quantities of heat energy toward the North Atlantic. As this warm water travels north, it releases its stored heat to the atmosphere, warming the winds that blow across Western Europe. Without this oceanic heating system, London would experience the same frigid climate as Labrador, which lies at the same latitude. The Gulf Stream makes much of Europe habitable, demonstrating how ocean circulation patterns influence the distribution of human civilization itself. But the story of this water molecule is far from over. As it releases heat to the atmosphere, the water becomes denser and begins to sink. In the cold waters off Greenland and Iceland, it joins one of the most important processes in Earth's climate system, AEP, the formation of deep water masses that will not see sunlight again for centuries. This deep, cold water begins a journey that will take it through every ocean basin on Earth. Flowing southward along the ocean floor, it travels under the warm surface currents, carrying dissolved oxygen to the deepest marine communities and removing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere for storage in the ocean depths. This single circulation pattern, cold warm water moving poleward at the surface, cold water moving equatorward in the depths, drives weather patterns across continents and climate zones around the globe. The complete circuit takes approximately 1,000 years to finish. A water molecule that sinks in the North Atlantic will travel through the depths of the Atlantic, around the southern tip of Africa, across the Indian Ocean, around Australia, through the Pacific, and eventually return to the surface in tropical waters, where the cycle began. This is the ocean's great conveyor belt, circulation system, that connects polar ice caps to tropical coral reefs, distributing heat, nutrients, and dissolved gases across the entire planet. But the ocean's role as Earth's climate regulator extends far beyond simple heat transport. The seas function as the planet's primary carbon storage system, removing 25 billion tons of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere every year and storing it for decades, centuries, or even millennia in different oceanic reservoirs. This carbon cycle begins with the microscopic phytoplankton that drift in surface waters around the world. These tiny organisms, invisible individually but collectively visible from space, absorb carbon dioxide during photosynthesis, just like terrestrial plants. But unlike forests, which eventually return their carbon to the atmosphere when trees die and decompose, ocean carbon can be removed from circulation for extremely long periods. When phytoplankton die, some sink toward the ocean floor, carrying their carbon content into the depths. In the cold, oxygen-poor environment of the deep sea, decomposition slows dramatically. Carbon, that was recently part of the atmosphere, becomes locked in deep-sea sediments, effectively removed from circulation for thousands of years. This biological pump, operating continuously in every ocean basin, prevents atmospheric carbon dioxide levels from rising to concentrations that would make Earth uninhabitable. Marine organisms also remove carbon from the water by building shells and skeletons from calcium carbonate. Coral reefs, consisting of countless individual polyps, each extracting minerals from seawater, represent one of the largest construction projects in Earth's history. Over millions of years, these biological structures have created limestone formations hundreds of meters thick vast repositories of carbon that once circulated freely in the ocean and atmosphere. The ocean's influence on planetary systems extends to the most fundamental cycles that sustain life. Consider the nitrogen cycle, AGT, the process that makes this essential element available to living organisms. While nitrogen gas makes up 78% of our atmosphere, most organisms cannot use it in this form. It must first be converted to ammonia or nitrates through chemical processes that require enormous amounts of energy. In terrestrial ecosystems, this conversion is performed by specialized bacteria living in soil or in the root nodules of certain plants. But in the ocean, nitrogen fixation occurs on a scale that dwarfs anything on land. Marine cyanobacteria, the descendants of those ancient organisms that first filled the atmosphere with oxygen, continue to work as planetary engineers, converting atmospheric nitrogen into forms that can support the marine food webs that ultimately feed 3 billion people. The numbers are staggering. Every year, marine nitrogen-fixing bacteria process approximately 100 million tons of atmospheric nitrogen, making it available to phytoplankton communities that form the base of ocean food webs. Without this process, the seas would be largely barren, unable to support the incredible diversity of life that currently thrives in every ocean basin. But perhaps the ocean's most immediate impact on human life comes through its control of weather patterns. The vast thermal mass of the oceans, water's enormous capacity to absorb and release heat, moderates Earth's climate in ways that make our planet uniquely suitable for complex life. During summer, ocean waters absorb and store solar energy that would otherwise heat the atmosphere to potentially lethal temperatures. During winter, they release this stored heat, preventing temperature drops that could freeze ecosystems across vast regions. This thermal buffering effect means that coastal areas experience much more moderate climates than inland regions at the same latitude. The ocean's evaporation provides virtually all the fresh water that sustains terrestrial life. Every day, 400 trillion liters of water evaporate from ocean surfaces, rise into the atmosphere as invisible vapor, and eventually fall as precipitation that fills rivers, lakes, and underground aquifers. Without this oceanic water cycle, continents would be lifeless deserts, unable to support vegetation or animal life. Hurricane and typhoon systems, among the most powerful weather phenomena on Earth, derive their energy entirely from warm ocean waters. These massive storms, while often destructive, play essential roles in distributing heat energy from tropical regions toward the poles and bringing precipitation to regions that would otherwise experience chronic drought. The ocean's influence on global systems operates through mechanisms so subtle they evaded scientific understanding until recently. Changes in sea surface temperature of just 1 or 2 degrees can alter atmospheric circulation patterns across entire hemispheres. The El Niño and La Niña phenomena, involving temperature fluctuations in the tropical Pacific, affect rainfall patterns from California to Australia, demonstrating how oceanic changes can influence weather systems on opposite sides of the planet. Tidal forces, driven by the gravitational pull of the moon and sun, move quintillions of gallons of water twice daily in a rhythm that has persisted for billions of years. These tides do more than simply raise and lower sea levels. They stir nutrients from deep waters to the surface, maintain circulation patterns in enclosed seas, and provide the mechanical energy that keeps many coastal ecosystems productive. In estuaries and tidal marshes, the twice-daily mixing of fresh and salt water creates some of the most productive ecosystems on Earth. These tidal pumping systems concentrate nutrients, remove pollutants, and provide nursery habitat for countless marine species. Many of the fish that populate open ocean communities spend their earliest life stages in these tidal mixing zones, where the ocean's rhythmic breathing provides ideal conditions for growth and development. The deep ocean plays a crucial role in regulating atmospheric composition through processes that operate on timescales measured in centuries. Cold, dense water masses formed in polar regions carry dissolved oxygen to the deepest parts of every ocean basin, supporting life in environments that would otherwise become anoxic. Simultaneously, these deep currents transport carbon-rich water away from the surface, storing atmospheric carbon in the ocean depths for hundreds of years. Hydrothermal vents, discovered only in recent decades, represent another way the ocean regulates planetary chemistry. These underwater hot springs, heated by volcanic activity on the seafloor, cycle vast quantities of minerals between Earth's interior and the ocean water. Elements essential for life, iron, manganese, sulfur, and dozens of others, are continuously supplied to ocean ecosystems through hydrothermal circulation. The ocean's biological communities actively participate in global regulation through mechanisms that demonstrate remarkable sophistication. When atmospheric carbon dioxide levels rise, phytoplankton populations often increase, removing more carbon from the atmosphere through enhanced photosynthesis. When nutrient levels change, marine food webs adjust their structure and metabolism to maintain ecosystem stability. Coral reefs provide one of the most dramatic examples of biological climate regulation. These limestone cities, built by the partnership between coral animals and photosynthetic algae, remove enormous quantities of carbon dioxide from seawater during shell construction. Healthy reef systems can extract carbon at rates comparable to terrestrial forests, while simultaneously providing habitat for 25% of all marine species. Marine mammals contribute to ocean productivity through processes that seemed counterintuitive until recently. Whale populations, recovering from centuries of overhunting, are now understood to enhance phytoplankton growth through their feeding and waste production activities. The nutrients they transport from deep feeding areas to surface waters where they breathe can fertilize vast areas of ocean, increasing carbon absorption and oxygen production. From the smallest bacterial communities to the largest ocean currents, every component of marine systems contributes to planetary regulation. The ocean operates as an integrated life support system more complex and efficient than any technology humans have ever created. It moderates temperature, distributes nutrients, recycles waste products, and maintains atmospheric composition within ranges that allow complex life to flourish. This planetary engine has been operating for billions of years, maintaining environmental conditions suitable for life through ice ages, volcanic episodes, asteroid impacts, and countless other disruptions. Its capacity for self-regulation and adaptation represents one of the most remarkable achievements in Earth's history, a living system that maintains itself while supporting an incredible diversity of life. Understanding the ocean's role as Earth's primary regulatory system reveals how intimately connected all life is to marine processes. Every breath we take, every drop of fresh water we drink, every stable climate condition that allows human civilization to flourish, all depend on the continued health and productivity of ocean systems that stretch from pole to pole and from surface to seafloor. The ocean is not simply the largest habitat on Earth, it is the system that makes all other habitats possible. In the depths of the Pacific Ocean, a humpback whale begins a song that will travel farther than any human voice has ever carried. The haunting melody, composed of notes too low for human ears to detect, spreads through the water at 1,500 meters per second. Across thousands of kilometers of open ocean, other whales hear this call and respond with their own voices, creating a communication network that spans entire ocean basins. This remarkable ability to maintain contact across vast distances represents just one of the countless marvels that make ocean conservation one of the most challenging and important endeavors of our time. How do you protect ecosystems that have no fixed boundaries, species that migrate across entire hemispheres, and communities that exist in 3 dimensions throughout the water column? The answer lies in understanding that ocean conservation operates on scales that dwarf any terrestrial protection effort. A single marine protected area might cover millions of square kilometers, an area larger than many countries. The animals it seeks to protect might travel distances equivalent to multiple trips around the Earth during their lifetimes. The ecosystems it preserves might extend from the sunlit surface to depths where crushing pressure would destroy any land-based life form. Yet despite these seemingly impossible challenges, marine conservation has achieved successes that demonstrate the ocean's remarkable capacity for recovery when given protection. Across the world's seas, marine protected areas now cover 18 million square kilometers, FU1, an expanse larger than Russia, providing safe havens where ocean life can recover from centuries of exploitation and habitat destruction. Consider the transformation that occurs when a damaged reef system receives protection. Within months of establishing fishing restrictions, fish populations that had been reduced to remnant groups begin to increase. Predatory species, absent for decades, return to patrol waters where they once maintained the delicate balance that keeps reef ecosystems healthy. Coral coverage expands as the animals that eat algae and other competitors reclaim their ecological roles. The recovery rates can be astonishing. In some protected areas, fish biomass increases by 500% within 5 years of protection. Species thought to be locally extinct reappear as if from nowhere, emerging from refugia in deep water or distant reefs where small populations managed to survive the worst period of exploitation. The ocean demonstrates a resilience that offers hope for recovery even in severely damaged ecosystems. But marine conservation extends far beyond simply drawing boundaries on maps. Modern protection efforts rely on technologies that would have seemed like science fiction just decades ago. Satellite tags smaller than a smartphone can track individual whales for months as they traverse entire ocean basins, revealing migration routes that connect feeding areas in polar waters to breeding grounds in the tropics. Electronic monitoring systems can detect illegal fishing activities across vast areas of open ocean, using artificial intelligence to identify suspicious vessel movements and automatically alert enforcement agencies. Underwater acoustic networks listen continuously for the sounds of marine life, monitoring population health and breeding activity in real time across entire ecosystems. Some of the most sophisticated monitoring systems focus on the smallest ocean inhabitants. Automated DNA sampling stations, deployed across coral reef systems, can detect the presence of hundreds of species from tiny tissue fragments suspended in the water. These molecular surveys reveal which species are thriving, which are declining, and which previously unknown organisms inhabit reef communities that appear familiar to human observers. The data emerging from these monitoring efforts reveals ocean ecosystems of almost incomprehensible complexity. A single coral reef system might support more than 1,000 species of fish, each filling a specific ecological role that contributes to the stability of the entire community. Remove one key species, perhaps a particular type of cleaner fish that removes parasites from larger animals, and the effects cascade through the entire ecosystem in ways that scientists are only beginning to understand. This complexity makes ocean conservation both urgently necessary and extraordinarily difficult. Unlike terrestrial ecosystems, where boundaries between habitats are often clearly defined, ocean environments blend into one another across gradients of depth, temperature, and chemistry. A species might spend different life stages in completely different ocean zones, making protection dependent on maintaining the health of multiple interconnected habitats. The great migrations of marine life exemplify this challenge. Arctic terns travel from Arctic to Antarctic waters and back again each year, covering more than 70,000 kilometers in journeys that take them through the territorial waters of dozens of countries. Protecting these birds requires international cooperation on a scale rarely achieved in human affairs, with protection measures coordinated across multiple hemispheres and ocean basins. Leatherback sea turtles present an even more complex conservation challenge. These ancient mariners, whose ancestors swam with dinosaurs, navigate across entire ocean basins, using magnetic field detection systems more sophisticated than any human technology. A single individual might travel 20,000 kilometers annually, diving to depths exceeding 1,000 meters in search of jellyfish prey. Conservation efforts for leatherbacks must protect nesting beaches in the tropics, feeding areas in temperate and polar waters, and the vast open ocean corridors these animals use to travel between them. Success requires coordinating protection measures across more than 40 countries and numerous international waters where no single nation has jurisdiction. Advances in satellite technology have revolutionized our ability to understand and protect these far-ranging species. Real-time tracking reveals that many marine animals follow predictable migration routes that can be protected through international agreements. Blue whales feeding off California travel to breeding areas near the equator, along corridors so consistent they function like highways through the open ocean. These insights have led to dynamic protection measures that move with the animals they seek to protect. Shipping lanes are rerouted seasonally to avoid whale migration routes. Fishing fleets receive real-time updates about the locations of vulnerable species, allowing them to adjust their activities to minimize harmful interactions. For the first time in human history, conservation measures can respond to animal movements as they occur, rather than relying on historical patterns that might no longer be relevant. Coral reef restoration represents one of the most intensive conservation efforts ever undertaken. Scientists have developed techniques for growing coral fragments in nurseries, then transplanting them to damaged reefs at rates exceeding 10,000 pieces per year. These restoration projects combine traditional aquaculture methods with cutting-edge genetic research to identify coral strains that show resilience to warming waters and ocean acidification. The results can be dramatic. Reefs that were reduced to rubble by bleaching events, storms, or destructive fishing practices can be restored to vibrant health within a decade when provided with the right combination of protection and active restoration. Young corals grow rapidly in the absence of human disturbance, creating habitat that quickly attracts fish communities and other reef inhabitants. But perhaps the most encouraging aspect of coral restoration is its demonstration of natural resilience mechanisms that operate when human pressures are reduced. Coral larvae can travel hundreds of kilometers on ocean currents, allowing healthy reef systems to naturally reseed damaged areas. Fish populations that maintained refugia in small protected areas can rapidly recolonize newly restored habitats. The protection of deep-sea environments presents unique challenges due to their remoteness and the extreme conditions that make direct human observation difficult. Hydrothermal vent communities, discovered only in recent decades, support species found nowhere else on Earth. Some of these organisms may hold keys to understanding the origins of life itself, yet they exist in environments so extreme that research requires specially designed submersibles and robotic systems. International agreements now protect many deep-sea habitats from destructive activities like deep-sea mining and bottom trawling. These protections extend to areas beyond any nation's jurisdiction, representing unprecedented cooperation in preserving environments that most humans will never see, but that play crucial roles in ocean function and planetary regulation. Marine protected areas have evolved far beyond simple no-fishing zones to become sophisticated management systems that balance human needs with ecosystem health. Multiple use areas allow sustainable fishing while prohibiting destructive practices. Seasonal closures protect spawning aggregations and breeding areas during critical periods. Tourism is managed to provide economic incentives for conservation while minimizing impacts on sensitive ecosystems. Some of the most successful protection efforts involve local communities that depend on marine resources for their livelihoods. When fishermen become partners in conservation rather than adversaries to be regulated, protection measures gain support that ensures long-term success. Community-based management systems often achieve better conservation outcomes than top-down regulations imposed by distant authorities. Traditional ecological knowledge, passed down through generations of fishermen and coastal communities, provides insights that complement modern scientific research. Indigenous communities often possess detailed understanding of fish behavior, migration patterns, and ecosystem relationships that took scientists decades to discover using sophisticated instruments. Integrating this knowledge with modern conservation science creates more effective and culturally appropriate protection measures. Technology continues to revolutionize conservation capabilities. Autonomous underwater vehicles can patrol protected areas continuously, monitoring ecosystem health and detecting illegal activities without requiring human presence. Genetic analysis allows scientists to track the effectiveness of protection measures by monitoring changes in species diversity and population genetics over time. Artificial intelligence systems analyze vast quantities of data from satellite imagery, acoustic monitoring stations, and water chemistry sensors to identify trends and threats that human observers might miss. Machine learning algorithms can predict where illegal fishing is most likely to occur, allowing enforcement resources to be deployed more effectively across vast ocean areas. Climate change adds urgency to ocean conservation efforts, while simultaneously complicating protection strategies. Rising sea temperatures and changing chemistry force species to shift their ranges, making static protected areas less effective. Conservation efforts must now account for the reality that many ocean ecosystems will need to migrate to survive changing conditions. This challenge has led to the development of climate-adapted conservation strategies that anticipate future conditions rather than simply protecting current ecosystems. Corridors connecting different habitats allow species to move as conditions change. Protection efforts focus on areas that modeling suggests will remain suitable habitat under future climate scenarios. Despite the challenges, ocean conservation efforts continue to expand in scope and effectiveness. New marine protected areas are designated regularly, often in response to improved understanding of ecosystem needs and species requirements. International cooperation continues to strengthen as nations recognize that ocean health transcends political boundaries. The success of marine conservation ultimately depends on recognizing that human welfare and ocean health are inextricably linked. The seas provide food for billions of people, regulate the climate that allows human civilization to flourish, and offer resources that support economic activity around the world. Protecting ocean ecosystems is not an act of environmental charity, but an investment in the future stability and prosperity of human society. Every protected coral reef, every restored wetland, every successful conservation program represents hope for a future in which human activities and ocean ecosystems can coexist sustainably. The technologies, knowledge, and international cooperation frameworks now exist to achieve conservation success on scales that previous generations could never have imagined. The ocean that has nurtured life for billions of years now depends on human wisdom and determination to continue its ancient role as Earth's life support system. The guardians of the blue frontier are not just scientists and conservationists, but every person who recognizes that our future is written in the health of the seas. Standing at the edge of the sea, watching waves that have traveled thousands of kilometers to break at your feet, you witness the end of one journey and the beginning of countless others. Each drop of water in those waves carries stories written across geological time, tales of ancient life forms that first learned to harness sunlight, of evolutionary experiments that produced creatures beyond imagination, of planetary cycles that have sustained life for billions of years. Yet these are not merely stories of the past. The ocean's greatest chapters are still being written, in depths we have barely explored, through processes we are only beginning to understand, and by creatures whose existence challenges everything we thought we knew about the possibilities of life. Consider the scope of what remains unknown. Scientists estimate that 91% of marine species await discovery, hidden in environments that range from tropical coral reefs to the deepest ocean trenches. Every month brings new revelations: a fish that walks on modified fins across the sea floor, a jellyfish whose life cycle includes a stage that appears to reverse aging, a deep-sea worm whose body chemistry should be impossible under known laws of physics. Recent expeditions to deep-sea mountains have discovered entire ecosystems that exist nowhere else on Earth. On seamounts rising from abyssal depths, communities of glass sponges create underwater forests that have grown undisturbed for thousands of years. These crystal gardens support their own collections of specialized species, many of which remain unnamed and unstudied. The discoveries extend beyond individual species to entirely new categories of biological organization. Deep-sea hydrothermal vents continue to yield organisms that challenge fundamental assumptions about the requirements for life. Bacteria that thrive at temperatures exceeding the boiling point of water. Complex animals that exist without digestive systems, instead hosting communities of chemosynthetic bacteria that convert volcanic chemicals into food. Ecosystems that operate entirely independently of sunlight, powered by Earth's internal heat and chemistry. These discoveries have profound implications that extend far beyond marine biology. Understanding how life thrives in extreme ocean environments guides the search for life on other planets. The enzymes produced by deep-sea organisms are revolutionizing medicine and biotechnology. The chemical processes that sustain hydrothermal vent communities may hold keys to developing sustainable energy sources. But perhaps the most remarkable aspect of contemporary ocean science is the revelation of connections that span scales from molecular to planetary. Advances in genetic analysis reveal how the smallest marine bacteria influence global climate patterns. Microscopic organisms that drift unseen in surface waters produce chemicals that seed cloud formation, influencing weather patterns across continents. The ocean's role in regulating Earth's climate continues to evolve as the planet responds to changing atmospheric composition. Warming surface waters are pushing tropical species toward the poles at rates of 10 kilometers per year, creating entirely new ecosystem combinations in previously ice-covered regions. As Arctic sea ice retreats, areas that have been frozen for millions of years are opening to colonization by organisms from temperate waters. These climate-driven changes are creating natural experiments in ecosystem assembly on a scale never before witnessed. Scientists can observe in real time how species from different evolutionary backgrounds interact when brought together by changing environmental conditions. Some combinations prove beneficial, creating more productive ecosystems than existed previously. Others result in competitive exclusion as species with similar ecological requirements compete for limited resources. The technological tools available for ocean research continue to advance at an extraordinary pace. Autonomous underwater vehicles can now operate for months without human intervention, systematically mapping and sampling remote areas of the deep sea. DNA analysis techniques can identify species from tiny tissue fragments found in seawater samples, revealing which organisms inhabit areas too deep or dangerous for direct observation. Satellite technology allows continuous monitoring of ocean conditions across the entire planet. Surface temperature, plankton productivity, and even the movements of large marine animals can be tracked in real time from space. This global perspective reveals patterns and connections that would be impossible to detect from ship-based observations alone. Perhaps most exciting are the developments in underwater communication technology. Networks of acoustic sensors are creating an internet beneath the waves, allowing researchers to monitor ocean conditions and marine life activity continuously across vast areas. These underwater observatories can detect everything from whale songs to deep-sea volcanic activity, providing unprecedented insights into the dynamic processes that shape ocean ecosystems. The integration of artificial intelligence with ocean research is opening new possibilities for understanding complex marine systems. Machine learning algorithms can analyze vast quantities of data from multiple sources simultaneously, identifying patterns and relationships that human researchers might miss. These systems can predict harmful algal blooms weeks before they occur, track the spread of marine diseases, and optimize conservation efforts by identifying the most critical areas for protection. Yet for all our technological sophistication, the ocean retains its power to humble human understanding. Recent discoveries have revealed that many assumptions about marine ecosystems were fundamentally incorrect. Deep-sea areas once thought to be biological deserts have proven to harbor incredible diversity. Open ocean waters, previously considered homogeneous, have revealed complex three-dimensional structure that supports distinct communities at different depths and locations. The realization that ocean ecosystems are far more complex and interconnected than previously understood has profound implications for conservation and management efforts. Protecting a single species often requires safeguarding multiple habitats across different ocean basins. Managing fishing activities must account for ecosystem relationships that connect the smallest plankton to the largest predators. Climate change is reshaping ocean ecosystems in ways that create both challenges and opportunities for marine life. While some species struggle to adapt to changing conditions, others are expanding their ranges and increasing their populations. The challenge for conservation science is distinguishing between changes that represent ecosystem degradation and those that reflect natural adaptation to new environmental conditions. Ocean acidification, caused by the absorption of excess atmospheric carbon dioxide, represents one of the most significant challenges facing marine ecosystems. As seawater becomes more acidic, many organisms that build shells or skeletons from calcium carbonate face increasing difficulty maintaining their protective structures. Yet even this global challenge is spurring remarkable innovations in both natural adaptation and human intervention. Some coral species are developing increased tolerance to acidic conditions through genetic adaptation that occurs over surprisingly short timescales. Scientists are learning to identify and propagate these resilient varieties, creating seed banks that could restore damaged reef systems as ocean chemistry changes. Similar adaptation efforts are underway for shellfish, sea urchins, and other marine organisms whose shells make them vulnerable to acidification. The discovery of natural resilience mechanisms in marine ecosystems provides hope for the future even in the face of unprecedented environmental change. Many ocean communities have survived dramatic climate shifts throughout Earth's history, demonstrating adaptive capacities that continue to surprise researchers. Understanding how these natural resilient systems work is informing conservation strategies that work with ecological processes rather than against them. International cooperation in ocean research and conservation continues to strengthen as nations recognize that marine ecosystems transcend political boundaries. Data sharing agreements allow researchers around the world to combine their observations into global data sets that reveal patterns invisible at smaller scales. Conservation efforts increasingly coordinate across multiple countries to protect species and ecosystems that span vast areas of international waters. The economic value of healthy ocean ecosystems is becoming increasingly apparent as scientists develop better methods for quantifying the services that marine environments provide. Coastal wetlands that protect shorelines from storm damage are worth billions of dollars in avoided infrastructure costs. Fisheries that support sustainable harvest provide food security for billions of people. Coral reefs that support tourism generate income for entire nations, while simultaneously protecting coastlines and supporting incredible biodiversity. This growing recognition of ocean ecosystem value is driving new approaches to marine management that seek to optimize both ecological health and human welfare. Sustainable fishing practices that maintain fish populations while supporting fishing communities. Marine tourism that provides economic incentives for conservation while minimizing environmental impacts. Coastal development that works with natural processes rather than attempting to control them. The future of ocean science lies in integrating knowledge across disciplines that have traditionally operated in isolation. Marine biology, physical oceanography, atmospheric science, geology, and climate research are converging to create a more complete understanding of how ocean systems function as integrated components of the Earth system. This interdisciplinary approach is revealing how changes in one component of the ocean system can cascade through multiple others in ways that affect planetary processes. The melting of Arctic sea ice influences deep water formation in the North Atlantic, which affects global ocean circulation patterns, which influences regional climate patterns around the world, which affects marine ecosystem productivity and distribution. Understanding these connections is essential for predicting how ocean systems will respond to future environmental changes and for developing management strategies that account for the full complexity of marine ecosystems. The ocean that once seemed infinite and unchanging is now understood to be a dynamic, responsive system that both influences and responds to changes throughout the Earth system. Yet, perhaps, the most profound realization emerging from contemporary ocean science is the recognition that human activities and ocean health are inextricably linked. The chemical composition of seawater reflects the health of terrestrial ecosystems through the rivers that drain into the sea. The productivity of marine ecosystems influences global climate patterns that affect agriculture and human settlements worldwide. This interconnectedness means that the future of human civilization depends fundamentally on maintaining the health of ocean systems. The seas that have nurtured life for billions of years must continue to function effectively if Earth is to remain habitable for complex organisms, including humans. But there is hope in this interdependence. Just as human activities can damage ocean ecosystems, they can also contribute to their restoration and protection. Every reduction in pollution, every creation of a marine protected area, every sustainable fishing practice contributes to ocean health. The cumulative effect of countless individual actions can influence ecosystem processes that operate on planetary scales. The ocean's story is ultimately humanity's story. In its depths lie the origins of life itself, the processes that maintain Earth's habitability, and the possibilities for a future in which human civilization and natural ecosystems thrive together. The blue horizons that have inspired explorers, scientists, and dreamers throughout history continue to beckon with infinite promise. Standing again at the ocean's edge, watching those waves break at your feet, you can sense the vast story that connects every drop of water to the history of life on Earth. Behind you stretches the land that humanity has learned to call home. Before you extends the blue infinity that gave birth to that life and continues to sustain it. The ocean story has no ending, only new chapters waiting to be written. In laboratories around the world, scientists work to decode the remaining mysteries of marine life. In coastal communities everywhere, people are learning to live in harmony with the rhythms of the sea. In the deepest trenches and remotest waters, new discoveries await that will reshape our understanding of what life can achieve. The infinite blue horizons stretch ahead, promising discoveries that will amaze, connections that will inspire, and possibilities that will sustain wonder for generations yet to come. The ocean that taught life its first lessons continues to offer new wisdom to those patient and curious enough to listen. The greatest story ever told continues to unfold, written in every wave, sung in every whale song, and lived in every breath we take of oxygen produced by the sea. The ending lies not in any final discovery, but in the endless capacity for surprise that characterizes both the ocean and the life it sustains. The blue planet continues its ancient dance through space, carrying its precious cargo of water and life toward a future bright with infinite possibility.